Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Trey Herr. I'm Senior Director of the Cyber Statecraft Initiative here at the Atlanta Council. I'm delighted to welcome everybody to our conversation today, Veterans in Cyber Transition, Pathways from Service to Cyber. One of the things that we have spent a fair amount of time on here at the Atlanta Council and the Cyber Statecraft Initiative is trying to think through the systems of cybersecurity on both the policy and the technology side. And we run into, on a fairly regular basis, some really fantastic individuals that have made it their purpose or their mission to understand and work on a specific facet of that ecosystem, trying to speed up patching in a small organization, trying to understand the impact of cybersecurity compliance on nonprofits. The cyber ecosystem, as much as it is technology and it is big P policy, really fundamentally comes down to these kinds of people. And so one of the things that we have tried to do over the last couple of years is to highlight for folks transitioning out of uniform opportunities to be of service and find that purpose in the cybersecurity ecosystem and in this industry in various shapes and sizes. And so today I'm delighted to be able to host indirectly this conversation. And I know our actual host and moderator, Al Hansen, and our panel are going to have a good conversation. Before we do that, though, we are delighted to be joined by Ambassador Nate Fick, himself a Marine and the senior-most cyber and digital policy official here at the State Department, for his remarks on what this transition was like for him and thoughts from others who might make the jump as well. So with that, we'll turn to the ambassador and then we'll get to our panel. Thank you all very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nate Fick, the U.S. Ambassador at Large for Cyberspace and Digital Policy. But my first role in government was as a Marine Corps Infantry and Reconnaissance Officer. And so I'm especially, personally, honored to speak with you today on the transition from wearing the uniform to working in the private sector and finding a second career in cyber. Thanks, as always, to the awesome team at the Atlanta Council for hosting us. As our inaugural U.S. Ambassador covering cyberspace and digital policy issues, I'm responsible for leading the teams who are developing the capabilities of our country's diplomatic workforce, as well as the capabilities of our partners and allies overseas to advance international cybersecurity. We counter nation-state threats to U.S. security and the security of our allies. This includes working to strengthen the cyber defensive posture of NATO and of our treaty allies in the Indo-Pacific and of countries like Ukraine. We also work to address what many countries see as the greatest risks to digital security for individual citizens, and by extension to their economies, things like online scams, criminal hacking, and other financial crimes. Ransomware has emerged in recent years as a particularly clear threat to national security, public safety, and economic prosperity. Last year, there were more than 6,600 ransomware incidents in 117 countries, a 73% increase from the previous year, including over 2,800 events in the United States alone. Everywhere I go, across the U.S. and around the world, every city, every region, every country is trying to build an indigenous tech economy. People know that this is the future. This is how a community can generate and sustain tax revenue. It's how you keep your young people from moving away. We have a pretty good read at this point on what the constituent ingredients are of a successful tech ecosystem. Rule of law, bankruptcy provisions, good connectivity, etc. Two of the most essential, however, are education and a capable workforce. That's true for our partners, and it's also true here in the United States. Recognizing the special skills and behaviors that veterans bring to this critical mission, roughly 10% of my team at the State Department are vets, and we often work with veteran-led organizations to advance our policies and programs. I can also tell you that veterans are strongly represented on the cybersecurity teams at our industry partners. Between serving as a Marine and coming back into the State Department, I spent a decade building and leading a cybersecurity software company, and also as a partner at a venture capital firm where we invested in many security-related businesses. As a cybersecurity entrepreneur, I worked tirelessly to recruit and retain top talent in a very competitive market and competed for that talent globally with other companies, governments, and all kinds of organizations. We are all free agents in the labor market now. People have more choices than ever in the opportunities available to them, and the most talented tend to be pretty mobile. That's great for individuals, and it requires employers of all kinds to up their game, not only in factors like compensation, which, by the way, in my experience is far from the most important criterion when people are evaluating jobs, but also providing a sense of mission, providing an opportunity for people to learn, and building communities of colleagues that make people want to stay. Military veterans bring a lot to the workforce, and I think the cybersecurity field in particular can also bring a lot to veterans. First, we learned leadership. My first commanding officer in the Marines, the guy I served under in Afghanistan, used to tell us that officers eat last. In his view, leadership was about responsibility, not about privilege. He ate less, drank less, slept less, carried more weight, and exposed himself to more danger. We loved him for it, and we'd follow him anywhere. You all know from personal experience what good leadership looks like, and also bad. You'll know what it looks like in any organization you join, and you'll be a part of making it better, regardless of your formal role. And that leads to a second point about leadership. You know the difference between formal and informal authority. In the military, formal authority is clear. We wear our rank on our shoulders or on our collars. We also know that informal authority, moral authority, matters more. And informal authority accrues to people who do two things. They know their jobs and they take care of their people. Informal authority doesn't depend upon where you sit in the org chart. It depends upon who you are and how you are. In my experience, most veterans really get that, and they bring it to their organizations. Second is teamwork. None of us can go it alone. You need to be a teammate, even, maybe especially, if you're the leader of the team. I had a board chairman who used to say that CEO stands for Chief Explaining Officer. A huge part of leadership and teamwork is building shared context, communicating again and again and again to make sure that people in a very busy world remember that the main thing needs to remain the main thing. Focus and prioritization and clear execution are the downstream result of leadership, teamwork, and communication. You also bring calm under fire, or at least you better. All of us, whether in a firefight or a diplomatic negotiation or a corporate merger, are operating in an OODA loop, observing what's happening, orienting on what matters most, deciding what to do about it, and then acting. The quicker and more accurate your loop, the more successful you'll be. But you have to stay clinical. Your hands can't shake. This is really true in cybersecurity, because cyber threats continue to intensify in both frequency and severity, with increased risks of escalatory or uncontrolled consequences. People who can respond to incidents, who can keep calm under pressure, and who can lead in stressful situations are valued members of every cyber team. Very quickly, on the other side of this equation, what cyber can do for you, in addition to what you bring to the cyber field. Military veterans come of age with a very clear sense of mission. That can be hard to recapture after taking off the uniform. But the cybersecurity field has mission in spades. If you appreciate waking up in the morning knowing exactly why you're doing what you're doing and how it connects to values and purpose far beyond yourself, then this is a great field. So with that in mind, there are two practices or habits that have served me well and that you all might consider as you position yourselves for opportunities in the private sector. First, build a cabinet of mentors. You've already taken the first step by joining the community the Atlanta Council is building today. We all need mentors, people who care about us and who've walked the path that we're on, but maybe are a few steps farther down that path. Over time, those mentors become a kind of kitchen cabinet who know you well and can give advice that connects because they know you so well. Second, hire your boss. Earlier in our careers, we tend to walk into job interviews as if they're a one-way street. The candidate is being evaluated by the employer. It's actually a lot healthier to make it a two-way street. You're evaluating that boss just as much as that boss is evaluating you. Your boss is someone you should be able to learn from, also someone who will be key in creating your next opportunities. So I really can't stress this enough. Go into those interviews evaluating them as much as they're evaluating you. With a global shortage of cybersecurity talent numbering in the millions and a relentless pace of innovation by criminals and attackers, the skills you've gained from your service and the dedication to a cause that you've shown are critically important to helping us tackle this challenge. There are ways to keep working with great people, to keep learning, and to keep serving. With that, thank you to our host, the Atlanta Council, for bringing everyone together today. This is partnership in action, and we should carry that spirit forward. Finally, thank you to all of you. both for your service and also for your desire to continue making an impact in cybersecurity.
On behalf of the Cyber Statecraft Initiative, I'd like to welcome our audience to our 2024 Veterans in Cyber panel discussion. I'm Al Hansen, an Assistant Director at the Cyber Statecraft Initiative. Thank you to Ambassador Nathaniel Fick for providing his opening remarks, and thank you to our panelists for participating. I'll provide a brief introduction of the panelists, and then we'll jump into the panel. We're joined by Lindsay Knight, Chief Impact Officer at Blue Star Families, Joe Wallace, Director of Military Engagement and Military Affairs at Microsoft, Catherine Hutton, the Veterans Advanced Energy Fellow at the Atlantic Council's Global Energy Center and Product Manager for Operational Technology Cybersecurity with Fluence Energy. And finally, Matt Noyes, a Director of Cyber Policy and Strategy at the U.S. Secret Service. The purpose of our panel today is to discuss the best strategies and methods to transitioning from a career in the military to one in civilian cybersecurity. I encourage our audience to ask questions in the Zoom chat, and I look forward to jumping into the discussion. For our panelists, starting maybe with Joe, could you briefly walk us through your background and career journey up until this point?
Well, thanks for having me, Alan. My career journey has been long, as you can see, but I served in the Marine Corps for 28 years, active in reserve. I had a career in search and consulting, talent acquisition, in technology, and specifically focused on transitioning service members as well. And I've been at Microsoft now for about almost 14 years this month. And our military affairs team focuses on supporting transitioning service members to find opportunities in the tech industry, either at Microsoft or partner companies as well. And it's great to be following other Marines in this effort with the ambassador and everybody else that's part of it here. So thank you.
Thank you. And just a slight correction. So if you have questions, if our audience has questions, I'd ask that they drop them at askac.org, not the Zoom chat. Sorry about that. We can move to Catherine at this time.
Sure, thank you. So Catherine Hutton, and I am a military spouse. My spouse is still active duty Army, an officer. And my career started in technology-based economic development. And then I went on to join the Secret Service and fell in love with working for an organization that is very mission-driven, alongside being a part of the military community, which is very mission-driven. And in being a military spouse, I knew that I was going to need to find a career that would support moving every 1 to 3 years. So got into cybersecurity while at the Secret Service, and then continued on in that field in the last about the last 8 years, and have done a variety of work supporting the Department of Defense and looking at innovative technologies for cyber defense, implementing zero trust technology. And now at Fluence, my focus is on critical infrastructure and what we can do to make sure that the technologies that we're implementing to secure our energy transition are going to keep our critical infrastructure safe.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. Lindsay, would you be able to go ahead, please?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for joining today. I'm Lindsay Knight. I'm the Chief Impact Officer of Blue Star Families. My background is a bit of a quirky one. I am not a veteran and I am not a military spouse, but I have a PhD in political science with a focus on democratic accountability and institutional change. And I have spent the entire trajectory of my career really focused on doing community work and bridge building and figuring out how to create a stronger civic fabric. So that is exactly what Blue Star Families does by supporting military families and military connected communities and connecting them with their civilian neighbors and building thriving communities of mutual support and deepening the sense of belongings, that military families feel to those communities. As part of that work, we have a very robust career portfolio in terms of our programming that supports active duty military spouses, transitioning spouses, veteran spouses, veterans themselves, and is has two sort of iterations. One is very much local and on the ground and through our chapter network. So connecting folks directly with local employers or organizations that are hiring. The other is using our digital platform, which is the largest online digital platform for military connected communities. At this point in time, we've got about 68,000 members on there, and really using that digital platform to create connections and get our members connected to networks and partners that they wouldn't normally have access to. And of course, because we are then operating on a digital platform, we also put a great deal of emphasis on cybersecurity, both internally to our team, along with a lot of the opportunities that we, employment opportunities that we provide to our careers community and membership base. So thrilled to be joining you all today and digging into those details.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay. Matt?
Hey, good morning. Great to be with you all, and apologize for not being on camera. I'm actually still in the Army Reserve and on duty today, and couldn't be on camera. My career path, I went to undergrad at University of Washington, studied computer science and applied math there, and then completely ran away from that. Became an Army infantry officer, served on active duty for 5 years, primarily stationed in Germany and deploying to Iraq from there. And on my second deployment to Iraq, it was in some of the drawdown planning in Iraq, and that got me real interested in national security strategy and policy, and learned about the post 9/11 GI Bill. So I ended up leaving active duty, going to grad school at the Harvard Kennedy School, and getting that paid for. And then it wasn't until I was there that cybersecurity became clear as a career option. And so it was actually the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was there speaking at the time, and one asked him, "What do you need help with most?" And he said, "Cyber," and that struck me as the most absurd answer when there's two active conflicts going on and you need help with the thing that's never killed anyone. So I took it as a sign they must really need help then. So I focused on it, got interested in the law enforcement aspect of it. So went to the Secret Service there. Actually, me and Catherine started the same month there in the same program. And then continued there because I love it, being part of a mission-driven organization. While I was there, I got involved in the Army Reserve and managed a series of augmentee assignments that are in cyber policy, whether in Office of the Secretary of Defense or currently on the Joint Staff. It's been a great experience balancing the reserves and the federal civilian employment.
Great. Thank you. And thank you to all our panelists for their brief introduction. Next, I'd love to kind of dive into the specific opportunities available to veterans, to service members, for them to transition into the civilian cybersecurity sector. So that's kind of the question I'll pose to the panel is, what specific opportunities in education, whether it be fellowships, scholarships, are there any programs that you would recommend? What can give our current service members the best opportunity to transition smoothly from the armed services to the civilian cybersecurity sector? And that's kind of an open question, but I guess we can start with Catherine.
Sure, thank you. So there are many organizations now that support scholarship and training for military veterans and the spouses community. And I think that's a great way to start out your cybersecurity career as you're transitioning. A lot of people hear the word cybersecurity and it's somewhat intimidating. And I think participating in some of these programs to get you up to speed in that initial understanding of the field, and then from there, you can figure out where within the industry you might want to focus. I was brought into the industry through a nonprofit group called the Women's Cybersecurity Organization, and they have specifically an affiliate group to support military veterans and spouses that has been a great way to network and continue to recruit veterans, as well as help advance those veterans that are working in the cybersecurity field. And there are other organizations such as the SANS Institute, which has a great program that military veterans can apply to get initial training, as well as ICS Squared to really get you up to speed. So those are just a few of many, but.
I
Yeah,
can
Lindsay, go
I
ahead.
can hop in with an answer there, just because it's a really good segue, in my opinion, from what Catherine was saying. I think when transferring any sector, but particularly from highly structured, regimented sector of the military into the private sector or even nonprofit sector that just has very different networks, has very different cultures, has just very different orientations to the work, I think the most important thing to do is find the organizations that want to connect you to the networks and people that you don't yet have access to. We heard this from the ambassador at the top of this session as well. Mentoring, partnerships, referrals, outreach, it's how you get to the next place. And one of the things that Blue Star Families does is we view ourselves as a connector organization. So our careers program does offer a lot of one-on-one engagement and support for our members, and we're bringing other partners to the table because we know there is interest in the offerings and the trainings and the free courses that they have, and we want to consolidate that information to our partners. So we have partnered with Microsoft through our Puget Sound chapter. We have partnered with Women in Cybersecurity to get more military spouses into that space. We partner with Fortinet, we partner with Coursera, Google, you name it. So find the places and organizations that are going to consolidate that information for you and then get you on those pathways to meeting people and organizations that are going to be your fit for the rest of your career.
Joe, any thoughts?
Yeah, so first of all, I will encourage all service members and spouses and those in the military community interested in cybersecurity programs while they're still active duty. There's so many great resources today through your transition center and education centers on bases that didn't really exist much when I was transitioning quite a few years ago. So reach out, find the information, do your research, be prepared as you're transitioning and looking for opportunities in industry. So and now to become Microsoft specific. So we're one of the most hacked organizations in the world with the prominence of our operating system. So cybersecurity is super important to us as we work with our partners, our government customers, and everyone that we engage with our technology. The Military Affairs team, we created a program called the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy in 2013. We've been operating that now for, up until this point. We have some pathways that you can enter into as you engage with our program and get into it. There's software development, network administration, and cyber. And we build security into all those three pathways as well. So the cyber one is for those that get a bit more of cyber experience while they're on active duty, or those spouses that might have some background in cyber can join our spouse program as well. And these are 17-week programs. You can take it while you're still on active duty. And then we support you in finding employment with either Microsoft or our partners. Our website is military.microsoft.com. I'll post that in the chat, and hopefully we can share it out to the viewers today. And you can go through all our different programs. We have a spouse program currently in pilot. It's a technical program management pathway, and there's security as part of that curriculum as well. So we're building new programs, and we continually keep our learning pathways up to date with the latest technology, with cyber, with AI. Now we're adding AI to those pathways as well, and we provide that employment support. So we call it professional development. We have a whole team on military affairs that developed the professional development program, which is about 80%, about 20% of what we deliver. 80% we deliver the technical instruction, and that professional development is all around putting together a great resume, your LinkedIn profile, and building a great LinkedIn profile, and how to use LinkedIn to network as well. And our employee resource group at Microsoft, which has grown steadily in the time that I've been at the company, are always mentoring and working with individuals interested in Microsoft or the industry, find them opportunities as they transition, or if they're part of the military community and looking to find opportunities at Microsoft.
Great. Thank you for that, Joe. Matt, do you have anything anything to add regarding opportunities to move from the armed services to the cybersecurity, kind of private sector cybersecurity?
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, first, I'd echo what my colleagues said. Encourage folks to take them up on those kind of services and options that are out there, which weren't as robust when I was leaving. But I'd say, you know, hey, if you're getting ready to leave the military, have a plan, right? Know what you're going to go and do next. Whether that's going to school, taking advantage of the GI Bill like I did, or next employment. What everyone said, I just want to emphasize that the networking component, interviewing is a skill, right? Expect to get multiple reps in an interviews, and select the organization and boss you want to work for, right? You have a lot more power in your job selection outside of the military than you do, and you need to lean into it, embrace it, and recognize the ongoing effort that needs to go into finding the right fit for you. And I'd say Secret Service, over 20% veterans across the federal government. There's veteran hiring preference, extends to spouses as well. So a lot of great opportunities within the federal government to continue to serve as a veteran. For the Secret Service, we're hiring, so secretservice.gov/careers, number of jobs posted there. And between putting the applications through USA Jobs, the networking, and building up the interview skills, you can definitely find an opportunity in cybersecurity in a range of functions, from the more technical to the less technical, if you get out there and look for it.
Great, thank you for that, Matt. Now, earlier in Ambassador Fick's remarks, he mentioned finding a mentor, right, and developing a relationship individually. And Lindsay, you even mentioned kind of like mentors and having these personal relationships, building a network. That's critical for, you know, job hunting, moving from university to the real world, or moving from the armed services to the civilian sector. Can you talk through maybe positioning and networking before leaving the armed forces, so that our service members know how to position themselves to take advantage of the best opportunities out there? And feel free to kind of jump in, yes, and contribute. Yeah.
No, happy to. I think there are two ways that I have done networking or finding a mentor previously. One is to do a LinkedIn search, do an organizational search, find out where you think you might want to be, and then see who you could talk to who works there. It can be cold outreach. You could try to find something that you have in common with a person, whether that's, you know, where you went to college together, or maybe they're also a veteran. Maybe you're from the same hometown. Like, having that, like, for cold outreach, having that personal sort of thing in common is really, really helpful. The other one that I have found that works, and I think this is probably applicable to anything that's related to cybersecurity, AI, data science, what have you, which are, relatively speaking, fairly new fields. If you find an organization or someone with a job title that you are fascinated by, but you have no idea what they do based on that job title, reach out to them and just do an intro call and be like, hey, I'm fascinated by your background. I would love to know more about what your job actually consists of. I did that. This was years ago, but it was a woman who had a PhD in molecular biology, and her job title was chief ontologist somewhere, which is just like, that's a bonkers job title, but one that's like very interesting, and it gives you something to talk about. And those are the type of people that you want to start building relationships with, because they probably have eyes on really unique opportunities or networks that you don't know exist because you're not part of them yet. So it's sort of thinking how networking can really almost be like social network analysis. Like, how can you connect with the spaces that you really want to be in professionally? And yeah, it's all about relationship building, being your own self. Similarly to like interviewing a boss in a job interview, like, you want to talk to people that are going to be very honest and straight with you, particularly in terms of culture fit. Not all cultures and not all jobs and not all workplaces are the same, and you want to find a place that really meets your needs and interests in this second half of your career. So ask people like, what is it like to work there? And when it's not in a job interview, and when there are people that really are invested in seeing you succeed, like they're going to tell you exactly what you need to know. And maybe some places are really great fit, and maybe other places are less great fits. But it's better to know that on the front end than discovering 6 months into your new career that it perhaps is not the best place to land. So.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Any of our other panelists have any thoughts or ideas here?
Yeah.
I'll jump in. So I know that some of the programs that we mentioned in the previous conversation, the fellowship opportunities, the training, as well as affiliate programs, those are great ways to increase your network and identify mentors. And some of those programs even have formal mentorship programs you can sign up for that are year-long programs to provide more of that kind of hand-holding guidance into the industry. I've also found success in attending conferences. So find conferences that are free and open for anyone to attend. I had an experience where I went to a conference and ended up sitting next to a military veteran, and that person ended up being a huge career sponsor for me and helping me line up my next steps in cybersecurity. So definitely, look into mentorship programs that are available, and then attend conferences and just be open to starting conversations.
And I'll jump in as well. So talking about the development of our programs, and I mentioned our professional development portion of the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy. We have close to about 1,000 mentors internally at Microsoft that sign up for each cohort. There's typically 4 or 5 individuals. There's one of them's a tech person, so they're experts in that technology that the cohort is learning, and they answer the tech questions and mentor those individuals. So throughout that 17 weeks of the learning, these mentors are engaged with the individuals across their professional development portion. And then also I neglected to speak to other programs that we have under military affairs, which is our partnership with Hiring Our Heroes and the corporate fellowship program that they offer to us, the spouse fellowship program that we're a participant in also. And then we have a newer program that really just launched recently with our data centers as we scale our current data center footprint here in the United States and globally. And we have a footprint, not all of them announced yet. With AI, data center space is at a premium, so we need to continue to grow to support that. The mentors, and I mentioned these mentors, these 1,000 or so people. When I first came to the company, we were an employee networking group, which isn't an official employee resource group. When you're an employee resource group, that's an official organization that gets funding from Microsoft. They organize. So things have gotten great at the company over the time that I've been there. We didn't even know, and nobody would share how many veterans were in the company. And we did come up with a process to self-identify. And in that time of the almost 14 years I've been at the company, the military community, not only those that served or spouses, folks like Lindsay who are interested in supporting the community, are part of our mentor program. And I encourage everyone to go to LinkedIn and get the premium service so you can filter and find individuals that have similar backgrounds to you at Microsoft. And most of our folks, unless they're in some 24/7 project for several months, will probably spend some time speaking to you about what we're doing and supporting the military community and finding opportunities at Microsoft or partner companies. So we have a whole group of customers that are great opportunities and a great way to launch your career in technology and cyber.
And I'll just add, I mean, just speaking to my own experience in terms of using grad school as a transition point of understanding the value of it, getting the most out of it in terms of the professors, your fellow students, your classmates, your alumni network, career services, and going with the right mindset. I didn't understand the the value, and I'd put it this way: the degree is the least valuable thing you get. The education is tremendous, but the most valuable aspect is the network, the people you get to meet, the mentors you get to develop. Leverage your research opportunities to dig into an area of interest and meet new and interesting people that you can then stay in touch with. And so using those kind of research opportunities, academic opportunities to engage, attending conferences, you're in the DC area, right? The various think tank events that are always happening. One piece of advice I got was you never should be paying for a drink at happy hour or eating lunch, right? There's always something going on where you can be out there meeting people, finding areas of common interest, and expanding your network professionally.
Thank you for that. I think everyone touched on very important points and very salient topics there. And Matt, to your point about a degree and the value of a degree, very, very interesting and very important to keep in mind that a degree can't necessarily kind of convey the cultural differences, right? And Lindsay, you kind of mentioned the cultural kind of differences and the importance of positioning yourself in the right culture. And I think that's what a network can certainly help out with. My next question is, about the differences in military culture and civilian culture, because in the military, sometimes I guess we can expect a more structured environment. In the civilian world, it may not always be like that. So, what advice would you give to service members that are looking to adapt to these cultural shifts? And before we jump into the response, for our audience, just a reminder to drop any questions you have in askac.org. That's ask, capital A, capital C.org. So open the floor to the panel on the cultural differences. Yes.
I'll hop in. So I was doing a reserve career, was on active duty at Quantico on reserve orders. I did a bunch of activity post 9/11. And I came to Microsoft, which is this massive company. I'll say there's microcultures across Microsoft as there is in the military. Aviators are very different than infantry officers. And those of you will know those differences. I don't need to explain those. And at Microsoft, the software development teams are very different than our individuals who are customer facing and with and out there engaging with customers day to day. We focus on a growth mindset, which is a learn it all environment and not a know it all environment, and collaboration and partnering with those across the company. A kind of a term came into Microsoft at a point where I was still at the company called One Microsoft. The company had been siloed quite a bit in the past. There was the Windows organization, there was the Office organization, Xbox, and not as much collaboration as the company felt we needed to do to be successful. So the One Microsoft was about collaborating across all these verticals in the company. And I've seen the evolution of our culture when our current CEO, Satya Nadella, came aboard. And that was his number one focus, was to work on culture at Microsoft and to change it. And he's been extremely successful in doing so. And those of us who have been to the company a long time have just seen the differences in how the company operates, how it faces to customers, and what we're doing in technology as well. So I would encourage those who are in the military community to just reach out to individuals at Microsoft and others in the tech industry. In the past as well, the numbers, the population of those who served in the military community, that percentage was very low across the traditional tech environment, especially the Silicon Valley tech companies, what you would kind of think of. There's older companies, obviously, that had tech, Hewlett Packard, and the defense contractors and things like that. But what you would think of as traditional tech companies, very small percentage of those from the military community in those companies. And those of us, I said, who were kind of looking at that early on at Microsoft, it's like, wow, there's not a whole lot of us here. And so as individuals that like to form teams and get things done, we decided to form teams and get things done. And it's been great in the time that I've been at the company. So
I think one thing that I would add to that, the first part would be to do like some honest questions as you are transitioning out. What type of role an organization is going to make you the happiest? Do you want to go from a highly structured position into another highly structured, organized, large company? Great. Then those are the ones you should target. Are you really interested in something that is brand new and startup-y and exists almost entirely in the realm of ambiguity or constant change? That is not for everyone. But knowing that on the front end, like tech as a sector or cybersecurity as a sector can have very different applications of that skill set. And I think a perfect example, Microsoft, which is obviously a company that has been around a very long time and has a very large footprint and a lot of processes and systems in place, is very different than a startup, for example, that might be focusing in cybersecurity and has been around for 2 years. So really like asking yourself, where will I be happiest, or what do I want to try that's new, and figure out which sectors and what size of or stage of organization is going to support those goals. And that will really help you refine the type of networking that you do, whether that is to a Microsoft or a Hewlett Packard or something really startup-y in Silicon Valley, and just figuring out where do I want to apply my skill sets. The other thing that I would add to that, though, is that just because something is listed as a nonprofit and not tech or private sector doesn't mean there aren't applications for cybersecurity and technology there, particularly with the growth of AI and data science, and frankly, the need for nonprofits to be cybersecure in the in their own platforms and the data that they collect on their members. Don't limit out nonprofit work. There are a lot of national nonprofits, I would say Blue Star Families included, that place a great deal of emphasis on cybersecurity and on the strength of our tech platforms. And there are other organizations like us that do that. So look private sector, look public sector, look at the government, and then figure out, do I want to be in a small team? Am I comfortable with a lot of ambiguity? Do I want structure? And then use that to sort of figure out, your path and how to analyze that landscape.
Awesome. Any other thoughts before I move to the next question?
I'll just add too that once you kind of figure out the path and the organization that you're wanting to target, like Lindsay was saying, and similar to Joe's experience, you can also ask if that company has an employee resource group for veterans, because that can be an automatic kind of inter-community that you can start with at a larger company or even a smaller company, where you'll have some of that shared experience right off the bat. So that helps with the culture transition.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think another question I have with kind of the 7 minutes before we move into Q&A from the audience is, what specific advice would you give to service members who are looking to go from maybe entry level to leadership positions in the civilian cybersecurity force? Is it different than advancing rank in the military? What types of kind of things what should they keep in mind? What types of strengths should they leverage to do that? Could you give an overview or maybe good points for accomplishing that?
yeah, I'll begin with, you mentioned earlier about certifications and education. It was mentioned earlier. So at Microsoft, it's not a requirement to have a degree to get into Microsoft. We have a corporate vice president that I support who spent several years in the Air Force, does not have a degree, got into the startup world and runs a massive business at the company and is doing great. So, and there's a whole group of individuals who have certifications and are experts in a particular technology, Microsoft technology or cyber, whatever that field may be. And they have thriving careers at Microsoft and have been here at the company many times. When I first came aboard, I met a group of prior service members who were at the time called Premier Field Engineers, and they were experts in a particular technology or enterprise and they engage with customers in that way. As folks are transitioning our programs, MSSA is probably focused more on the junior enlisted, and those do not have degrees. Primarily, some do, not most of them do not, but they receive that foundational technology learning to help them ramp and skill up to an opportunity in industry, and they can grow from there. Some of the other programs are focused more on more senior enlisted or junior officers. So look at the different programs and see what are the primary groups of individuals in these programs that companies are engaged with and where you may fit in. Because there's opportunity across the board for those that served for 4 years or those that served for 30 years, and find that pathway into the tech industry. And the programs that we operate are open to everybody at all ranks, and our spouse program as well. But there's different pathways depending on their background, their desire, and where they want to be in the company at what level. And we typically ask them to pursue that particular program because it's a better fit for them, and they'll find more opportunity for their desires if they follow that particular pathway. The Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship is typically for more senior folks, those with deeper skill sets. And our ERG, our Employee Resource Group, is heavily engaged with that population, finding them opportunities across Microsoft that fit their backgrounds. And then, as I said, with our MSSA programs, not all, but typically those opportunities are for more junior folks that might not have a degree, but they're pursuing it. And the aptitude is something we look for in the application process as well. And so there's a number of different pathways, and engage with us, and we sort of let you know what's the best pathway for you.
I think related to that, the biggest piece of advice that I would give is ask questions, ask questions, ask questions, and it's a slightly different culture in private sector, in networking, or in job interview stage around what is deemed an appropriate question to ask. So one that I think is really valuable if you are, navigating, is this company a good fit for me? Are they interested in seeing me succeed? Are they interested in the background and unique experiences that I bring as a veteran to this organization? Ask them what their retention rates are for veteran hires. If they're serious about the work, their HR team, well, your interviewer might not be able to answer that, but their HR team will be able to. And if they can't, or if the number isn't great, dig a little deeper. But you can also ask, what in this role, what is my proximity to decision making for large projects? You can ask how the role is essentially seen. And I've always found that really useful, either in networking or in like a formal interview process. And another one is, what is this, a new role? Is this a backfill? And what happened to the person who left it? Did they advance elsewhere in the organization? Did they leave? Is it a new role because there's a lot of growth going on? Like figuring out by asking questions in those settings, how the role is perceived and where it is situated. And then what additional supports might be available to you as a veteran entering that company? Is it employee resource groups? Is it additional training? Is it a formal mentorship program? All completely fair game to ask, even in a formal job interview. So I would actively encourage that approach.
Yeah, I just add, rather than from a leadership to technical, of just recognize the breadth of the cyber workforce, right? It's from special agents and lawyers to IT specialists, and depending where you want to focus in your career path and what kind of work you want to do, there is a wide range of opportunities available to you. And so whether that's looking at the NICE framework that this publishes, cybersecurity skills framework, look at the full breadth and find the right fit for you, and recognize how that relates to the size of an organization or its type of work. Of a jack of all trades at a small company as like their main IT specialist or their CISO or whatever the role may be, being able to specialize more in a large organization and focus in a particular area. But the the world's your oyster because the demand is so high that you can really identify where you want to focus as your next step and what sort of skill set you want to build upon. And so embrace that opportunity.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all for those remarks. Moving to a question from the audience. They ask, what resume tips do you have for translating service experience into private sector or civilian sector skills that are desirable to employers? Kind of an open-ended question, but this gets at how do you bring out those strengths that are developed in a military environment and structure them so that they're attractive to civilian sector cybersecurity positions?
I'll go ahead since I've seen many resumes over my time from the military community. Uh, First of all, just resumes in general, quantify as much as you can on your resume, size and scope of what you've done, how large of teams you've led, the impact of what you did on your organization, those sorts of things. Be prepared to speak to problem solving that process and have that in your resume in a bullet so you can speak to that in the interview. Some of the interesting things you see on military resumes. So you're not really a CEO of an organization. I know people are trying to translate a commander to a CEO of a squadron or battalion or even a operational command as a colonel or whatever the command may be. It's really not a CEO. So most people do understand commander of something is a commander. So there are folks that have an issue with using terminology in the civilian world and applying that to what you did in the military. And those of us on the other side of the resume typically aren't. You can translate your skill sets and do that without having to take away from your military background. If you're, we talked about companies who are interested in engaging with the military community. Typically, those individuals interviewing or engaging with you are either from the military community or they've been educated on the skill sets that those in the military community bring to the table. So be prepared to really just translate your skill sets to what that specific position is that you're interviewing for, and the process of, as I mentioned earlier, quantifying what you did, speaking to you, how you accomplish these things. And you have to become an I for a while. It's not we all the time. You have to speak to yourself and what impact that you had on the organization and your successes. Often, as those of us in the military community speak to what our team did, and that's kind of how we're groomed and cultured in the military, is that we're a team. But you have to speak to yourself and your successes and have confidence in that without being overconfident in it as well. When you speak to that resume, get specific as you can and relevant to the opportunities that you're pursuing. Generalities in that resume that are not relevant to what you're pursuing in your career at that time is just extra space in the resume that can be taken up with. Sometimes I encourage those to put down things that they do outside of the day-to-day workday. That person you're interviewing with may enjoy cycling or golfing or whatever. And that's a connection you have with that interviewer, which could be very important in the interview.
I'll add two things to that. I agree with everything that Joe said. But the two additional details that I would add. One is a shout out for our Blue Star Careers program. I popped our registration link in there. We have a digital community of about 10,000 of our members who are military spouses or veterans or active duty members who are all part of a highly curated and highly engaged community that's all about career transitions and job access and networking to partners that want to hire that community. And one of the things we do in that space is actually bring employers in for Q&As, resume reviews, all of sort of like the background intel that you would need to craft a compelling resume for a specific employer or for a specific type of role. And to build off what Joe was saying in that sense, tailor your resume to not just the specific role you're applying for, but to the organization that is doing the hiring. Different organizations have different norms or things that they preference in a resume. So have like a master resume. It could even be 4 pages long, and just so you are able to copy and paste or tailor it to very specific contexts. And then the last thing that I would add is back to that mentoring and networking part. You can ask people to review it. So if you've met someone at that organization and you're like, hey, I would love to get your eyes on this before I formally apply, take advantage of those resources. One, people always like to be asked questions or think that they are in an expert seat and can help. And two, you never know what the internal networks of an organization are. So that person might be best buddies with the individual or the hiring manager for the role that you're interested in. And then that's sort of an automatic plus for you when you apply. So network, tell people to review your stuff, and give really targeted attention to the materials that you send in.
Those are all
I'll just-
great advice. I would just emphasize a couple pieces. Avoid the jargon acronyms, right? Like that is the worst thing the military does to you is you end up speaking in jargon and acronyms and you lose a lot of people. So purge all of that, use plain English, quantify, and then and just want to emphasize the point of read the position description, right? The person looking at your resume should be able to tell from your resume that you read the position description, right? You know what you're applying to. If that someone that reads resumes in a job, like the immediate stop point for me is it's clear they don't even know what they've applied for. That's not a good starting point, but happens a lot.
And I'll just add too that don't neglect the cover letter. Sometimes cover letters aren't really required anymore for job applications, but if you draft a cover letter, it can help you explain the story that lies between the lines in your resume. And even as a thought exercise, it can help prepare you for that interview. So, consider doing a cover letter as well.
All very good points of recommendation and advice on the resume. As we approach the close of our session, kind of a rapid fire, what is one piece of advice you would offer veterans transitioning into the workforce? I mean, there's a lot of different moving pieces. Some people might be maybe flustered by the amount of things that they need to consider, or they may not know what to do first. So what's one kind of the most important thing a current service member should think about in their transition?
One thing that I've heard veterans say is, and you can also think about the same advice would go to a college graduate or a master's degree graduate, that don't get so stressed and think that the first job you're going to have when you get out of the military is the job you're going to have for 20 years. So it might just be the starting point for you to discover where you want to end up being.
Well, there's so many different, there's one piece of advice that's pretty difficult. I'll just say ask. Ask for mentors, ask for individuals who will support you, ask your base for the resources, ask those who went before you what their pathway was. Often those in our programs have had a mentor in the military, had someone they served with, and then they follow them. So ask, and network, build that network and utilize it.
I think just building off of that, ask very specifically for support that matters to you. There's a large group of people out there, either vets or, as I stated, I am not a military spouse or a veteran, but very much want to see you all succeed as a cohort in in that transition out of service. And there are lots of people like me out there as well. So ask for help, ask for support, information, what have you. There are a lot of people out there that want to see you succeed and don't think that's not the case. The only other thing that I would add, LinkedIn is a thing. It is a thing that the private sector and nonprofit and even academic worlds use. It's not creepy or weird if you look at people's profiles or follow up with them immediately after a meeting. So like genuinely think of that as a way to start building a formal network. And no one's going to get nervous or think it's strange that you asked to connect with them after a meeting. So take advantage and really document all of those relationships, because you never know where people are going to end up later in their careers. And it's always good to, have a conversation with folks that you meet every few years.
I mean, my one recommendation is right in line with the other folks said. Right, you have no record brief in civilian employment. Your professional relationships is that, and so build those, maintain those. They're your best guide and best validator for what skill set you're bringing to an organization. So focus on that.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Thank you all for those remarks. A little bit of time left, so I want to give anyone the floor to provide any closing remarks or closing thoughts, maybe about any of the programs you're running or what you're excited about with veterans, service members moving to the civilian sector. So, Joe, I guess I'll start with you and then work my way down the screen.
Well, I'm just excited in where the military community has come in the last number of years, and have how they've come together in industry to support those transitioning and finding them opportunities. I've been fortunate to partner with a number of different companies and doing this type of work since I've been at Microsoft. Companies like Amazon and Booz Allen Hamilton and Southwest Airlines, and the list goes on and on and on. Look at those partners of the Hiring Our Heroes organization under the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and you'll see those. The terms have sort of evolved over time, military friendly and military ready, and now they're speaking to military thriving, which is where we believe we're there here. We're there at Microsoft now with our ERG, just coming together with the several thousand individuals that spend part of their day, not their day job, supporting those who are interested in the company and interested in the industry. And for those on the other side, be confident in what you did. Come to the table with confidence on your service, what you accomplished, and be able to present that to anyone who you're interested in joining their organization, and speak to how you will make that organization successful because of your service and what you accomplished during that service. Often people do not like to speak about themselves, but you need to be confident in yourself and present yourself to those opportunities. And mentors can help you do that. As Lindsay said, have people review your resume and review what you've done, and speak. Don't be afraid to go out and ask for that advice and ask for that network, and that network will support you and help you in your pathway, since we're talking about cyber and tech in the tech industry. So those would be my final words.
Great. Thank you. Next on my screen is Lindsay.
I will keep mine short and simple. Please join the Blue Star Families Careers community online. In the last month alone, which admittedly was Cybersecurity Awareness a month, but in the last month alone, we had 5 separate events and webinars in our neighborhood community that was all around essentially partnerships or employers that you could connect with within cybersecurity, resume reviews, training programs that are free of charge to all of our members, and just direct connects to organizations that want to get you where you want to be. So please join our community. There's a whole resource library, and there is a whole very large group of people that want to support and assist you in the next stage of your career.
Great. Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, I would say, consider federal civilian employment, whether it's a law enforcement agency, intelligence community, commerce, right? Like a range of opportunities in cyber in the federal government that are readily available for you. After leaving active duty, consider the reserves and continuing a piece of your service. I didn't initially, and then came back to it, and it's going on 10 years now in the reserves, and been great and very manageable as a federal civilian employee. So be open to that. Certainly I was, you know, like many people, just getting out of the military felt like a task in its own. But really thinking through those next steps, having the conversations to understand the opportunities out there for you, and embracing them.
Great, thank you. And then we can end with Catherine.
Sure, thank you. So I'd just add that, as a military veteran transitions out of the military service, the family also transitions out of that community. So as Lindsay and Joe have mentioned specifically about those programs to support veteran families as veteran spouses as well, take advantage of those communities to help along with that transition.
Great, thank you. And thank you all to our panelists and to our audience for joining. I really appreciate you taking the time out and talking through those things. I kind of took away that, taking agency over your networking, over your own education, over kind of understanding what the transition is going to be like is an important step forward, and especially that cultural aspect, because you want to make sure that you are placed in an optimal position. So thank you to our panelists for going through those points. In light of the 249th Marine Corps birthday on November 10th and Veterans Day on November 11th, I would like to say thank you to our service members in the audience and our panelists for their service to our country. And with that, I would like to also thank our AV team, our events team. I'd like to thank my colleague Jen Roberts and my colleague Laura Macedo for helping set up this event and run the event. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and I hope you have an excellent weekend. Thank you.